Let's be honest, running doesn't always feel like sitting in a nice warm bath. Sometimes it hurts. So today we're going to be talking about pain tolerance and specifically how you can increase your pain tolerance. That'll be a good thing, right? Let's get into it. Oh, and this is the weekly running and training vlog where the main purpose of this video is for you to tell me about your week of running. I want to hear about your successes and I definitely want to hear about those setbacks. So drop a comment about your week, how it went, what'd you get up to. I'd love to hear about it. Right. Pain tolerance. Well, first of all, pain tolerance is the amount of pain that you can withstand without any medical intervention or doing something that will lessen the pain. Does that make sense? It is the peak amount of pain that you can handle. So in our case, you're probably going to experience it when you're out for a run and you just don't want to be there. Like things are starting to hurt because you've been out there so long or you've been running so fast. Perhaps you're running a 5K and your heart rate is through the roof and it just doesn't feel good. Well, you know that you can stop that right away by stopping running. And at that point, you would have reached your pain tolerance. But what happens if you reach that pain tolerance and you're not quite at the end of the race? Well, then you've got a problem. That's why I'm going to give you ways to increase that pain tolerance. You've also probably heard of pain threshold. Pain tolerance and pain threshold are different. The pain threshold is the amount of time, no, not time, is the amount of feeling that it takes before you recognize that feeling as pain. So pain threshold is on the bottom end of the spectrum and pain tolerance is on the top end of the spectrum. Now here's the thing, they're both independent. They don't work with each other, but if you do increase your pain tolerance, it's likely that your pain threshold is also going to increase. So keep that in mind. Guys, it is important to remember when we're talking about pain tolerance, pain threshold, it's important to remember that these are physiological things. So they are going to differ between one person and the next. So just because this person over here can handle so much pain, it doesn't mean that you are also going to be able to handle that same amount of pain. You're different. We don't compare ourselves with others when we're running, right? We're all on our own journey. And that's a good thing because the variables are different within each individual. Also, it's not always clear why one person has a higher pain tolerance than the next person. But there are a few reasons why your pain tolerance could be higher or lower. And the first one is genetics. And I always hate hearing about genetics because there is absolutely nothing we can do about our genetics. But there have been studies that have shown that there's certain part of our genetics that will influence your perception of pain as well as your response to pain medication. Interesting, eh? And get this, you've probably heard, like me, that women have a higher pain tolerance than men. And that's actually not the case. Studies have actually found that women have longer lasting and more severe responses to pain. Oh, and how about age? This age always puts us on the downer because we generally get slower as we get older. Not generally, it happens to everyone, but elderly adults tend to have a higher pain threshold than younger adults. But that's probably because our senses tend to get a little duller as we get older, so it's probably not a good thing. You get this, now this is a good one because your emotional health can actually affect how you are feeling pain or how sensitive you are to pain. So this isn't a reason to take care of your emotional health. I don't know what is. Stress is something we all experience, but stress actually lowers our pain tolerance, as does loneliness or social isolation. But clearly you are not feeling socially isolated at this exact moment because you're watching this video and we have a good connection, right? But in all seriousness, there are a lot of other illnesses that do affect your sensitivity to pain. Depression, anxiety, panic disorders, PTSD, all of those things can lower your pain tolerance and increase your sensitivity to painful stimuli. And this next one is the most important thing, I think, because we're always talking about expectations and how expectations are the root of unhappiness, but it does turn out to be pretty true because our expectations greatly influence how we perceive pain and when we're going to perceive it. So let's say you're going out, you're running a 5K. You're telling yourself, Matt, this 5K, it's going to be so hard. Your heart rate's going to be so high. You're going to be pushing to the max. You're going to be in some serious pain for that 5K. Well, invariably, I am going to be pretty miserable because I am expecting to feel pain. Now look, there's no getting around feeling pain when you are pushing yourself to the limit, but expecting that pain is just going to make it that much worse. And let's be honest, we don't need it any worse. 5K is pretty miserable. Wait, am I influencing my and all your expectations by saying that? Okay, scratch that. 5K is super fun. It's like a day out at Disney. But seriously, your expectations about pain, they can be manipulated. So for example, if you know that doing breathing exercises are going to reduce your stress level, so you're not going to be experience a certain amount of discomfort, then that is a tool in your toolbox and you can pull out that tool, your breathing exercises, to make that 5K that much better. Maybe a 5K is a bad example, but there's a lot of other times in our lives when we're going to experience some kind of physical pain, and having the tools in our tool chest to combat that pain, even if it's just by turning our thinking and telling ourselves it's not going to be that bad, that is going to make it not as bad. I know what you're thinking, but Matt, tell us how we can increase our pain tolerance. Just Get it over with. Okay, intense exercise. Now I can hear a collective sigh of disappointment because I know you already do that. You're already going out, you're running, you're training, you do intense exercise on a pretty regular basis. I'm sure of it. But get this is actually the best way to increase your pain tolerance because you're constantly training yourselves to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And I know that's a cliche, but it is true. You want to get comfortable feeling that discomfort. But we need more than cliches, right? This has actually been backed up with science, and studies have shown that vigorous cycling can actually raise the pain tolerance. Although, interestingly enough, that vigorous cycling in the studies did not raise the pain threshold. But remember, the pain threshold and the pain tolerance, they're independent of each other, so it's not that surprising. Now this next one is pretty good. And I say it's pretty good because it's something that I don't do on a regular basis, but I could do if I wanted to raise my pain tolerance. And that's yoga. That's right, yoga. Studies have shown that people that do yoga have a higher pain tolerance than those that don't. But it's also fairly interesting to why yoga makes us have a higher pain tolerance. It turns out, now this is pretty fascinating, in that yoga practitioners actually have more gray matter in the area of their brain that's associated with pain processing. Isn't that amazing? That's amazing. Right, the third way that you can increase your pain tolerance is with mental imagery. And this is something that I am sure that you have done. In fact, why don't you write a comment with what you like to imagine when you're out there trying to disassociate yourself from the discomfort of running. And the mental imagery is going to be totally different depending on the individual, depending on what you want to imagine. But for example, you could imagine like a big red ball, and that ball contains all your pain, all your discomfort. And then you can imagine yourself holding onto that ball and then throwing it away. And with that throwing away of the pain and discomfort makes your discomfort and pain disappear completely. It sounds crazy when you actually say it out loud, but doing it, studies have shown that it actually works. It can raise your pain tolerance. Okay, also, and this is a fun one, vocalization. Vocalization of your pain can increase your pain tolerance. So there was a study where a group of scientists got some participants, and the study was to put their hands into some ice cold water and to see when they had to pull their hand out. And it was found out that the participants that were instructed to say ow when they started experiencing pain were able to hold on just a little longer, so their pain tolerance was higher. And get this, there was another study that showed that when participants were allowed to curse when they experienced pain, it was found that their pain tolerance was higher than the participants that were instructed to say a neutral word. So cursing, I don't know if you've seen it, but there are studies that show that cursing is also tied to intelligence. So if you are intelligent and you want to raise that pain tolerance, go ahead and curse. Of course, I can't give you an example because I'd get demonetized, but I'm sure you know a few curse words. You can refrain from writing them in the comments, it's okay. And then of course, there's biofeedback, and biofeedback is a type of therapy that is designed to help you to deal with stresses and pain. And for the average healthy runner that is just experiencing pain from running, biofeedback therapy probably isn't some way that you're gonna go. But let's say you are someone that deals with anxiety or fibromyalgia or back pain, biofeedback can actually help you control the pain, which if you are experiencing that level of chronic pain, it sounds like a pretty good deal. Okay, the next way that you can increase your pain tolerance is quite simple, especially when we say it out loud, and that's trusting that that pain is going to pass. So when you're out on a hard interval workout, let's say you are deep into a race or doing any other activity where the end is inevitable. You know the end is coming, you're just working to that end point. Trust that that pain is going to pass and you will be able to hold on that much longer because you know you're not going to be burdened with that pain for the rest of your life, right? Once you get to the finish line, you're going to be able to stop running, and as soon as you stop running, that pain is going to disappear until DOMS sets in. But that's a topic for another day. We're talking about the instantaneous pain that we're feeling as we're actually running. Guys, it's not going to be around forever. Trust that it will pass and that pain tolerance will increase. And much like the mental imagery, talking to yourself can also raise that pain tolerance. And yes, it does go back to disassociation. We're trying to get our mind to focus on something other than the discomfort that we're feeling in the time. That's why we repeat mantras when we're running. Something as simple as counting works wonders. So let's say you count to 10, then you just start over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on and on. I think you got the example. 10 seems like a pretty low number. Maybe if I was going to try something like that, I would increase the number, but you get what I mean. Just by focusing on that counting, it's going to take your mind away from the discomfort at the moment. You know what? One more way to increase your pain tolerance, and that is simply to accept what the day brings. So when we go out, we go out for a run, we're training for a race. You and I both know that racing is not going to be a walk in the park, right? Obviously. We're probably not going to be paying for a walk in the park, but we are going to pay to put ourselves through some level of discomfort in order to prove something to ourselves, to achieve some goal. And that's what you signed up for. So by accepting that that is what the day brings is going to raise your pain tolerance, because that is what we signed up for. Even on our training days, when we wake up early, and we're uncomfortable and we're still tired and we want to go back to bed. And then we go out and those first couple miles just never feel good. But you know that that's what you signed up for. You're doing it for something in the future. So as long as you accept that you are out there, that this is part of the whole experience, you can accept it and move on. The same thing goes with things that we can't control, like the weather. Let's say you get out to a race and it's super cold or super hot or it's raining. My friends, that is what the day has brought, and you just adjust your goals and move forward. So guys, of course I want to hear from you. Have you guys noticed a difference between when you started running and let's say your pain tolerance was down here to now, when your pain tolerance is up here? Or are you actively trying to work to increase your pain tolerance? I want to know about it. And with that, I had a pretty good week of running. It started off on Monday with 9 miles total, but get this, I know you're expecting me to say that I started off Monday with a super easy run, but I had plans and I had to do my interval workout on Monday this week. So I warmed up for 2 miles. Then I did 6 1-kilometer repeats with 800 meters recovery in between, and then I cooled down for 0.75 miles at the end. A bit of an obscure number as my cool down, but I'm sure I was just trying to get to 9 miles total. Anyway, Tuesday I was off and I wanted to go down to the Ringling Bridge to get some elevation. And when I say elevation, I mean Florida elevation, where I'm just running over a bridge. And according to Strava, I knocked out 9 miles, which was a pretty good run. I had a good day. I enjoyed running up over the bridge. But what you didn't see, and that will be included in my end of week total, was that I also ran an additional 2.5 miles, but that activity was made private on Strava for reasons I cannot discuss. But maybe I was doing a little bit of filming for an upcoming shoot, but you didn't hear it from me. Wednesday was my day off this week, so I was feeling pretty good, especially after that workout. And then the bridge repeats were kind of like a workout, even though I wasn't thrashing it going uphill. It still felt like a workout. And then after that day off, I had my tempo run, which was a normal tempo Thursday for me. I ran 9.1 miles total. I warmed up for 1.5 miles, then I ran 7 miles at tempo pace before cooling down for 0.6 miles. Another obscure number, I know. And I actually would have cooled down for a little longer if I had the time, but I didn't, so 0.6 miles was all I had. Friday was another good day. I knocked out 8 miles total, but this time I stayed very close to home and I went into a country club near my house, and you've heard it before, I ran over and back a golf cart overpass where the golf carts go between one green to the next tee, and it's not very much, but I did it 18 times. And actually, there have been years where I've gone to Boston where that was the only hill that I trained on at all. So it's not much, but it's what I have close to home. Saturday was 11.6 miles and it was a super easy effort, but I did throw in 7 30-second strides just to get my legs turning over towards the end of that run. I was feeling pretty good going into Sunday, and Sunday was my long run. I knocked out 21.3 miles and ended that run feeling pretty good, especially considering I just ran 21 miles. Now look, I was definitely tired, but the weather was in the high 50s, which is pretty ideal. And I actually finished that run totally dry. My shirt was dry. And for those of you that run in a cooler climate, that might not be a big deal. But here in Florida, it is a very big deal. And that contributed to a pretty good feeling at the end of my run. Anyway, that brought my week's total to 70.6 miles, which is about 113.62 kilometers. So all in all, a pretty fantastic week. I am definitely happy that I made it to 70 miles. And this will probably be, if I had to guess, this is probably going to be my highest week before Boston. And at the time this video is releasing, there are 4 weeks until Boston. So I think I'm going to make it. I think I'm actually going to be able to finish that distance at the Boston Marathon, which is always a good feeling. We're going to talk about goals in the next couple of weeks. I don't think I'm going to go out and set any records at the Boston Marathon. I'm just going to try and run it, but run it faster than I run my training runs, but probably right around the same sort of times that I have been running in my last couple marathons. But that's it for this week, guys. Don't forget to let me know about your week of running. Remember, successes and setbacks. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.